Good morning, YouTube. So I have a first impressions review to do today. I installed the Racetech fork spring kit on the left leg of my CRF 300L here. And this is the first ride I've taken on it, other than up and down the street a couple times. I installed it yesterday. The stiffness of the front end is about double, I would say. We're going to be up on some trails here in a moment, on some double track routes, that sort of thing. But so far, just on the Forest Service Road here, I've run into a few patches of pretty good washboard, and I know what it handled like before. You know, it would throw me all over the place. And the bike would just drift, lose traction. And I don't notice that now, I'll tell you. It's a lot better on washboard. The damping on the front, of course, with just the spring kit, you know, you're not increasing the damping. So it's a lot stiffer, but the same damping as stock. But I don't know, maybe that's a good thing, you know, not to have it too damped on the front, so that the front wheel can quickly come back to the original position, kind of thing, as it goes over bumps and washboard and stuff. On the paved roads, it's nice to have a little bit more damping, I suppose, but on dirt and off-road, that sort of thing, I have a feeling it's better to have a little less. As I rode out here on the paved roads, I noticed the difference there too. The bike felt more secure. It didn't have that wallowy feel, you know, going through turns and corners and such. Okay, so here we are on the rougher routes. I always have a zip tie on my fork leg so that I can see the travel that the suspension is using, and I moved that up to the top before this ride, so it'll give us an indication of how we're doing here. I'm kind of purposefully taking the wrong lines sometimes here just to get the feel. Yeah, it seems to be handling the bumps and such just fine, and maintaining traction. I think the front wheel is tracking the ground pretty good. In the past it didn't, with the stock front suspension, that's for sure. It was just so squishy and wallowy. Now I'm getting much better feedback. The rear end seems to be just fine right now too. As you know, I've got the K-Tech shock on the rear. And yesterday, when I was checking the sag after putting the kit in the front end, just rechecked the sag. The sag was still fine. I tweaked it a little bit, but yeah, it's at 30% of the suspension travel, which is where it should be. And what I did, oh, that's it, got good and wet there. What I did was I increased the damping. I increased the damping 1 click. So I'm trying to feel that out too. seems to be okay. I don't know if I've got enough experience at testing that sort of thing out. I've never had, prior to this, a shock with adjustable rebound damping. Yeah, the front end feels good now. I don't really feel a liability anymore on the bike, you know, from the suspension. It just feels like it should. I can go at this sort of stuff with a lot better speed and still feel the bike doing its thing properly. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was good. So, yeah, first impressions. I like it a lot. I think it's totally worth doing. It's not expensive. You know, in American funds, it's, what is it, $130, something like that. And you get a spring, you get a few washers, one of which you actually use, and then you get a plastic tube and a top and bottom kind of cap on the tube. And the spring, of course. So, and that all goes in the left leg there. And yeah, it's not a hard job, you know, just take your fork out and yeah, there's instructions on their site. The kit didn't come with instructions, but you download the instructions on their site, and then it's pretty simple, really. A bit fiddly with the tube, and the one thing, if you get this, you got to watch, and I told Racetech about it, is the plastic tube that comes with it. I don't know whether they make that tube or, you know, cut it and drill it, but pretty poor. The end cuts and the holes weren't deburred, so there was all sorts of plastic curly cues hanging on the inside of the tube. Yeah, I mean, if someone didn't really realize that and didn't look at it, they'd install it, and all that plastic would cause havoc in your shock or in your fork. So anyway, other than that though, yeah, cool. Okay, so there's our zip tie right there. I don't know whether you can see this. Am I holding the camera right? Right there. Now, prior to this, with the stock settings, with the stock fork, it was about a little over an inch and a quarter from the bottom. So it was pretty well bottomed out. But now that is probably roughly almost 2/3 of the suspension travel, not quite, which is perfect, I would think, you know. So there's another indication that all is well. Final thought is definitely worth it. If you have done the rear suspension and you got yourself a shock, or you're going to, I would definitely recommend getting the Racetech spring kit. It works really nice. I thought after I got the K-Tech shock on, you know, I think the front end's okay. But then the more I rode it, the more I realized I'm getting that wallowy feel, and it isn't from the rear. So yeah, good improvement. Okie dokie. We're on our way home. So that's all I got. If you have any questions about that spring kit, the install, or whatever, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. If you've got it, let us all know what you think of it. Anyway, you take care, you ride safe, have fun, and I'll catch you on another one.